J.C. Bowman. He is the head of the Professional Educators of Tennessee. We have not spoken to J.C. in a month of Sundays, and it's good to have you back in studio with us, my friend. You look great. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good to be here with you.
It's going to be fabulous.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll have a good time. For those who are unfamiliar with the Professional Educators of Tennessee, PET, I got the acronym right.
Yes.
I just mangled the rest of it. Tell us what you do.
Well, we're a teachers association. The interesting thing, every time somebody criticizes, we say something pro-teacher or whatever, there's a teachers union. We're not a teachers union. We don't give money to one candidate. We don't endorse candidates, and we are nonpartisan. And I mean, when I came up through Republican politics.
Right.
And I was a hardcore conservative.
Would you consider yourself an alternative to the teachers unions?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. I mean, the two teachers unions, the NEA and the AFT. Well, the AFT, for all practical purposes, outside of Cumberland County, I think in Tennessee, they maybe have 5 members.
Right.
So, in essence, there's no existence of them in Tennessee.
What about do you have a membership?
Oh yeah, we have
8,000
members.
And what would you say if I just pulled you off the street and said, what do you do for your membership? How would you describe your organization?
Well, that's easy. We provide teacher liability number 1. Teachers mess up every day, and they're very liable for lawsuits. Mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't take anything to file a lawsuit today. You look at a kid wrong, you grab an arm, you break up a fight. We had a teacher that pulled a 250-pound kid off of a 100-pound teacher, and he weighs about 170 pounds himself, and pulls this 250-pound kid off the teacher. And of course, what happens? He's going to get sued.
Right.
And so, we represent them. We have attorneys on staff, and so for that, we do that. We have member benefits. Our member benefits are second to none. Love that. In fact, Matt, I'll give you a membership. You can take it for a test drive for the member benefits. We got more. You can rent a car. I don't care if you rent from Hertz. We get no kickbacks. We strike all these deals for our members, and we've got member benefits called Passport. Same thing that you get if you were an Apple employee out in Silicon Valley. It's great benefits program.
But you do, but you do on occasion represent your membership when matters of education come before the General Assembly?
Oh, yeah, and I do lobby. And so that's the lobbying piece of it is, like, for example, we surveyed our members. 91% opposed vouchers.
Right.
So what are we going to do? We're going to follow our wills of our members.
Why do you, and that leads us into the discussion, and this will not just be a discussion with JC about the scholarship fund. There will be a discussion about Antioch High School. I want to talk to you about teacher and student safety. I know that that's very important to you. As we were setting this up last night, you said, please, let's talk about this because it's such an important subject, and I agree with you. But let's just start there. Why do you believe that 91% of your membership are against? You refer to them as vouchers. I don't know that they're specifically vouchers if we can't say that the money is following the kid specifically, but. Well,
interesting. And I actually have that note in here. I actually had a reporter call me, and I wanted to be correct with that today. And there was a discussion that took place in the Senate, whether it was a voucher or a scholarship. And so she asked me, I go, tomato, I don't care. You can call it whatever you want to call it. The main difference is the scholarship would be provided like if it's a tax credit. So if it's a tax credit, technically, the tax credit, you write a check to pick the school, Lighthouse Christian. You write a check to Lighthouse Christian, and they pick some kid and give him the money. That's a scholarship. Mm-hmm. If you give the money goes to the school, and that kid enrolls and gets that money, and the money is coming from government, that is technically a voucher. If the money comes from government, it is a voucher. That's not my term. That's the term that has been defined historically in there. Now we're trying to switch it because a PR firm says if you use the term voucher, you and I talked about like school tuition. I will tell you,
there was a big push by opposition to any of this to suggest that any money spent on a scholarship would come out of the education budget. And I think the pushback was to change the verbiage. And whatever. I'm like you, tomato, but I think that was in response to what I consider to be a misrepresentation of what was going on, that any money that is used for these scholarships would necessarily come out of the existing education budget, which I don't think that's what's happening now.
No, it is a separate program.
Right.
And honestly, and here was the thing, last year what hung up the whole deal was John Lumberg wanted this this program to actually come through public education, one system. He called it one system. Money follows the child.
Mm-hmm.
We've already gone to TISA, which is a child-centered funding formula. Let the money follow the child, and that money would go out in one system. I think John Lundberg technically was correct. I mean, I think that if you're going to follow it, it should just be one system, because that way, ultimately, you can't run two systems. What is it they said? Abraham Lincoln said, "A house divided can't stand."
Well, you're not really running two systems so much as you're pulling the money specific for this scholarship fund out of one different. You're not
pot of money.
Yeah, you're not combining the pots of money.
And that is one argument. So I remember. So you go back to this. So you say, okay, well, why not just fund the system? Why not just fund the kid if you're going to do that? And that's more of a pure libertarian thing. If you're going to actually do that, fund it through the system and let it go through that. Anyway, I think Lundberg was correct. They couldn't get around that last year.
Because and I would argue that over the last 10 years in the state of Tennessee, and I witnessed this in the state of Alabama,
right?
That good-hearted people believed educators and administrators when they said that it's a money problem. And over the last 10 years, we've doubled the money in public education and seen no good results. And I saw the same thing in Alabama. So, JC, is it a money problem or not?
I don't necessarily think it's a money problem, but I do think we're playing a little bit, and this is not you.
No. It's fair.
So like last year, I hear this. We put $2 billion more into education. Okay, wait a minute. No, what you did was you eliminated a health care, $800 million that was going to student health care. You moved it over into education under the new TISA formula, and then you said, hey, we just gave you $800,000 more. And you still have to provide the same services. It's the same $800,000. We're just shifting pots of money around at the same pot. Now, they did upgrade. It has gone up $1.2 billion. So I'm not going to deny that. But my point being is that, but then you can go around and say, well, we put $2 billion more money into education. That's technically not correct. And I think that you want to make sure that we're really, that's been my big argument about all of this in politics. Just be honest with it. And come out and say, look, this is what, let's be honest about the whole thing. Yes, I've said this, and you and I have had this discussion. Mm-hmm. I'm not running away from it. We've got problems. We got to change. We got to do things different. And back to my teachers, I do want to say this. My teachers are usually the conservative teachers. So I want to say, they see their education, their job in education, it's their calling. They really believe that that's what they were designed to do, what God's put them on this planet to do, to teach school and everything. And when everything that comes out of the executive branch, particularly this governor, has been negative toward them, they take it personal. And I'm talking about Republicans who are hardcore voting Republicans think this governor is targeting them personally.
Why do you suppose that they think? I mean, so are you suggesting that their perception is that the governor is anti-teacher?
Yeah, I think they think he's anti-teacher and anti-public education. Well, I think his statement's been, and I can, on a personal basis, I mean, I don't know how many times I've given up. I don't want to meet with the governor anymore. He wants to talk to me, read my columns. That's by the way I feel. But I would meet with him. I mean, obviously, but he will not sit down and talk to people. And that's why the people that come from out of state or other people curry favor with him and get access to him. He doesn't talk to people here in our state that are really invested in a system that he seeks to improve.
Wait, so you are, I mean, you're laying out, I mean, and that's why I love you. I mean, no, I get it. I mean, you're laying it out where the goats can graze on it. Do you agree with the premise of your statement that you say do you agree that he's anti-teacher?
I do think he is.
Explain to me how trying to invest in a different way of doing things. And I mean, so if my television at home, and I'm just on the fly, I'm trying to come up with an analogy. If my television's on the fritz,
right,
and it's all squiggly, and I can't watch my TV properly, and I get very frustrated, am I anti-TV?
No.
Or am I recognizing that my television's broken?
You recognize your TV's broken.
So can you not recognize that the system isn't working for the students and not be anti-teacher?
You can, but why don't you talk to the teachers and bring them to the table? I'm not saying all of them. You can't bring 80,000 teachers to the table and go, all right, guys, tell me your ideas. But it would behoove, last time I used the word behoove, I got a free call from the commissioner.
I love it. I love behoove.
And I said,
behooves you to use that word on our show.
To sit down and just talk to us what we're feeling.
What do you think he would hear? I mean, this is so intriguing to me. So what do you think? Because you talk to him. Yeah. What is the governor going to hear from the teachers that you don't think he's hearing?
So let's go back to the thing with Larry Arnn a few years ago. Do you remember that?
Vaguely, yes. It was right when I got in.
Arnn comes in here and he makes a statement and he says, teachers come from the dumbest parts of the colleges and dumb. And
sure.
Yeah, and there sat Bill Lee right there on the front row and everything. I didn't expect Bill Lee to jump up and go and knock Larry Arnn down. Larry's been saying that for 25 years. He believes it. Larry is a bomb thrower and an intelligent man. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's a brilliant guy. I'm not disputing that, but he throws bombs in these meetings and gets feedback. But there sat our governor. I think it would have been nice, and everybody went to the governor. I mean, Cameron Sexton did it. Randy McNally did it. Everybody else came out and said, those were that man's views. They weren't ours. They go to the governor and say, Governor, can you at least come out and say that you value teachers and respect the job they do? He never commented on that.
Wait. So if I suggest to you, and take the governor's motivations out of this,
right?
But if I suggest to you that there are teachers within the system that are not performing up to the level of expectations,
right?
Am I anti-teacher?
No. And I think you're justified. I think there are some teachers. I use it that there are teachers that need to find other career.
So equally, if I, on the other side of that, say that, hey, that I love teachers. I think teachers are great. I think teachers are awesome. We applaud teachers. That doesn't mean that I'm applauding those that we recognize are a drain on the system. So, I mean, anytime you're talking about a system that large, you're going to probably at times sweep with a little bit of a broad brush.
Yeah, and I think that's right. And I try to give him the benefit of the doubt. Believe it or not, I really do. I try to find some good things that he does and do that. But I think that we feel like, and I'm going to say this, the opinion. If I put out a statement right now and we say on the internet, on Facebook, and we go, what is your opinion of Bill Lee? I bet you, and I'm just guessing, 90% of the criticism from public school folks or from would be negative. And it's not just over, and it's not about vouchers.
So what has he? So I mean, I'm fascinated by this subject. I want to dig too deeply into it because I mean, it's neither here nor there. But you have the experience. You've sat down in front of him. You've talked to him. So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it feels like you question his motivations.
I do.
Okay, so if you question his motivations, what actions do you believe he has taken that is negative or anti-teacher?
Let me give you
specifically as a governor.
Let me give you something today. Today on social media. Today, Tennessee came out, NAEP. We did really well in NAEP, the national Tennessee came out, did well on that test result.
Right.
We by the way, Florida, which were
not so good.
Yeah.
Right.
But Tennessee did real well.
All of my friends in the Democrat Party were quick to jump on this Florida result.
Yeah.
That's coming to the state of Tennessee.
So with that, instead of saying, congratulations, teachers, great job, whatever, he goes, this proves that school choice works. Look, and by the way, here's the test results for NAEP. And it's kind of and or. Why can't he just had 1 second and said, good job, teachers. Tennessee's on the right track. Take kudos.
I mean, JC, you and I are friends. I feel like your membership. Are they children? Do they constantly need to be patted on the head?
No, but they don't feel like that they're even recognized.
Is education working?
It is.
Education's working for the average Tennessean.
I think it's working for the.
You got a 39%. I mean, you understand that 39% of graduates are proficient in what they're supposed to be proficient in the state of Tennessee. You know the numbers.
According to what? No. According to I want to go back to this because this matters to me down the road. This has been my argument. Let's be able to compare apples to apples. Okay. It's a perception that private schools somehow are kicking public schools rear end. And they go, well, we're going to do a nationally normed reference test. And I'm like, okay. I'm the one who suggested it. Well, look, make somebody take a test. I was for less testing.
Right.
I'm like, let's get smarter tests, briefer tests. Let's sample and make sure and test them. Governor DeSantis of Florida came out with a good idea about taking 3 tests a year. Let's benchmark them when they get there. Let's take about halfway through the year, see where they're at, make the adjustments right then on the fly, get them better, and then take a test at the end and make sure they're on grade level. If not, you're held back. And so
look, and I am going to be accused of being anti-teacher during this conversation.
No, you're not.
And I'm not anti-teacher.
He is not.
I want to improve the system, and I recognize that inside of any large system, there are going to be some great positives. And I think for the most part, teachers are an incredible positive within the system.
Right.
And there are some negatives. It's my understanding I'm getting my little birdies, JC. You're not down there. You're not whipping votes. You're not doing your deal over there at Cordell Hull. You're here with me. You're slumming it with me.
I better get over there.
Well, at least apparently there's a lot of, this is the crunch time, right? They know that votes come tomorrow, and every interest involved in this is trying to make their case, be the last one in the room, I suppose. You've said you're against this. I want to go over this real quick, and then I want to get to Antioch.
Right.
Just give me the 25-word version as to why you are against. I mean, you've been in favor of school choice in the past.
Right. I mean, I think everybody's in favor of school choice at some level. So you go down through the thing. So you can even be for vouchers. If you wanted to for low income kids, if you wanted to say that, if you wanted to be for vouchers for kids in failing schools, kids that are bullied, if you wanted to be for something like that. But when you start getting into the universal voucher, that's a key word. It's a different thing. The state's own statistics show that 2/3 of them are going to be kids already enrolled in private school. How does that improve public schools? It doesn't. That's my point. It's not going to help it.
So if it were limited to those who were not currently in private school, would it change your dynamic or change your opinion on it?
It would, and I would put a cap on it. The other part is the financial piece of this. That I'm concerned that it would go like Arizona, and the next thing we're looking at $700-800 billion,
right.
$1 million or whatever the number was. It'd be up to $1 billion pretty quick if we don't keep our hands on it. Because then what you do, Matt, you bring in a whole new lobby coming in. Then you get like a Michael Love, the AFP. No offense to these guys. I shouldn't call names, but you get these other groups that come in and then are going to lobby for them to raise their tuition. Oh, 77,000 is not enough. We get 8. We got to raise more. Because look, the tuition is $10,000, usually basically. $7,000 is not going to pay it. There's not a kid in East Nashville going to Innsworth. And then you got the schools that are going to accept it. And so that testing's an issue for me. They've written the names of at least two vendors into the financial document that I have some problems with. Students First Technologies, which was just removed in Arkansas and I think West Virginia. So, you might want to look at some of those. I think the 74 has done some articles on the Students First.
If I gave J.C. Bowman the ability to craft something, a piece of legislation or, a law, whatever, that you believe would be most beneficial in improving educational outcomes, what would it be?
I would go into school systems. First off, you have to analyze it. You have to know where they're at, Matt. So, I'm not against testing. I think we need to be smarter testing, less testing, some of the things like I talked about, benchmarking. Then you go into schools, districts that are continued problems. It's always the carrot and the stick. What will it take to get these teachers here? Like for example, at the end of the day, it's still blocking and tackling. It's a 3-legged stool. It's the teacher, it's the curriculum, and it's the kid in the classroom. 3-legged stool. You got to get these teachers in the inner cities. These teachers stay there 2 years, they're gone. 1 year, they're gone. If they're Teach for America, they're there 10 months and gone. You got to get a teacher to stay for a long period of time and learn to hone their craft and put your best teachers into the harder districts to teach.
Why do they leave?
Not lack of support from the administrators. The curriculum is almost self-directive now. The state sets the standards. They say, here's the 5 books you can choose. It's basically they're picking your own books, so you can't go outside there. Give the public school system freedom to do the things they need to do. And by that, what if standards need to be changed? Every time that we do a standards rewrite in Tennessee, the teachers will come back and say, okay, here's the top 100 standards in 3rd grade that a student needs to learn. We send them up to this committee, this blue ribbon committee at the state. they come back and they're 180 standards. Somebody said, well, New Jersey's doing this or California's doing that. Let's add this to it. And our teachers don't recognize the stuff. So, make it that driven. But if you could do that, and then if they're in a failing school still, yes, they need to be able to move along those lines to another school. And then but only at that point could you do that. And then you need to take that school and turn it around.
It's interesting. And in that answer, and I intentionally tried not to interrupt it, you say that these teachers, particularly teachers in the inner cities, leave after a fairly quick turnaround. Well, I don't think they don't leave the profession, do they?
They do.
They just leave the profession entirely. They don't go to the rural communities statistically.
No, it actually kind of works backwards. They'll come here. It's money driven. So you'll come to a system and say, look, I can make more money going to this system. Mm-hmm. Like, look, take a little county like Cannon County. They're over there in Cannon County for a year or two. They come over here and then they go to Rutherford County. But you don't see a lot of movement from Rutherford County to Metro National Schools.
Right. I mean, and does it not boil down to the more successful systems see more parental involvement?
You do. And that's exactly Wilson County.
And we can't. And so
Rutherford.
It occurs to me that all of this talk and look, and I'm not against trying to figure out how to crack the nut, but until we get to the idea that parents cannot just hand their kids to the school system and expect that without a level of involvement, they're going to get a good return. I mean, I don't think the government can solve that problem.
No, and that's exact. Government's not God. You said that. I think that's your next hour. But one of the points that I spoke in Memphis, and I was in Memphis, and I was talking to a school, and this lady goes, "Do you know what's wrong with public schools?" And I go, "No, ma'am, but I get the idea you're about to tell me." And she goes, "I am." And she said, "It's because parents aren't involved." I said, okay. I said, I would disagree a little bit. And she looked at it. I said, no, we don't want them involved. We want them engaged. We don't want them like driving by like my dad did and threw me out of the school. That's involvement. But engagement's when my dad's checking to make sure I do my homework and everything.
Right. I mean, and I think on some levels there's more parental engagement than ever before. There's an ability to check behind the student and whatnot. And, but on some fronts there is none. And it is not only can the government not accomplish that task, I don't think it's the government's job to try to accomplish that task. And I don't know what to say to it.
No, and I think we've taken on in things in education that we had no business taking on. And I will say mental health, probably something.
Well, mental health, and in some systems you see robust disciplinary issues that the system itself, I mean, it feels like you squeeze on, it's that balloon game, right? You squeeze on the disciplinary issues and then it pops on the other end and it's almost impossible to chase that rabbit.
And I'm not against the mental health thing. I want the experts to deal with the mental health. I don't want, our guidance counselors necessarily dealing with some of this stuff.
That routes us over to Antioch. And I wanted to ask you about your thoughts on, by all accounts, and I've tried to not prejudge any of this before all of the information comes out. I mean, obviously it's a tragedy and it's a disaster.
It is.
Apparently there were some form of metal detection. Those things got removed. Adrian Battle isn't answering a lot of questions, the head of the Metro Nashville public school system, regarding when they were put in, why they were removed. Now they have a new type of system in there, indicating to me that if now's the time, why wasn't that system involved beforehand? And then you hear about this student that apparently there were red flags galore that existed with this student. He had a box cutter at one point, and you were telling me during the break that there's a lot of evidence that that perhaps some have been discouraged from hardline disciplinary practices within that system.
That is absolutely right.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so my understanding is that principal actually has gotten in trouble and had to learn not to suspend kids at such a high rate. She had suspended a lot of students for discipline issues. And quite frankly, Matt, when kids are such a behavioral problem in the school, not only does that student need to sit back and get the parent involved and need to do things, the other kids and they need to see that example of kid. I tell people this is actually one of my favorite areas of background. I have a background in this, so I'm like antecedent, behavior, consequence. And these kids are not seeing any consequences for misbehavior. And what do? That
encourages misbehavior.
Encourages more misbehavior from other people. And so, my understanding is that these principals over here, their hands are tied from central office. So this is a school board issue, and this is a Adrian.
So your information indicates that the principal of Antioch High School was told that, or on some level was instructed by her superiors that she had too many suspensions going on at Antioch.
I think that's accurate. That's what somebody has told me, and I trust this source.
I mean, we're hearing that, and I trust you. I don't believe that you would say that without trusting the source that tells you that, so we further that along. I mean, this seems to be a pattern of behavior of mollycoddling the rule breakers, hoping that everything ends up okay, and we have a 16-year-old child dead, potentially, at least in part, as a result of some of that mollycoddling.
That's what it appears. And I think if I'm the superintendent of the district, I'm not going to answer a lot of questions either. In your opinion, is Dr. Adrian Battle, should she be fired? I'm not going to go to that extreme. Not that I shouldn't. I think that she's got some explaining to do. And I think the school board needs to hold her accountable. And if the school board doesn't hold her accountable, I think the state needs to have a hearings and look at it and bring it up there. This is where the state could actually really do. They're talking about taking over Memphis, Shelby County schools, for
something that Cameron Sexton says is going to happen.
Yeah, well, whether that needs to happen or not, there's some problems with that superintendent that he liked, the previous superintendent. But in this case, I think that it would behoove him to bring her in and ask some questions about what it's like running an urban district, number one. And I would have a true Q&A about Antioch and ask some of these questions publicly.
Are you in favor of, either just in your involvement in school systems, in your career, or as the leader of the PET, are you in favor of, in some of these systems, having the technology like metal detection or some sort of weapons detection? I mean, I would expect.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my teachers, the one thing is, if you can't keep kids safe and you can't keep the faculty and staff safe, we're out of business anyway, Matt. It won't, school choice, vouchers, that ain't going to matter. We're all out of business.
It's an explosive conversation that needs to happen regarding whether or not, because of paperwork. I don't know what reasoning might have gone into removing metal detection in the aftermath of COVID, but what we are told is that the superintendent Battle said that there were unintended consequences. I'm hearing that those unintended consequences were demographically based, and she didn't like that.
That's what Fran Bush alleges. Fran Bush came out and said exactly what you just said. Now, let me go back to something. You may remember, we were on this show and on Dan Manis. I did it the same day. I talked on both you guys' show. And one thing that we were on was about SROs in our schools. And they didn't want SROs in schools until we,
certainly not in elementary schools, right?
No. And because we raised such a scene on this that actually now they got SROs in schools.
Incredible information. Tell us what you think is next for, you mentioned, I asked the question and you answered it. So on the issue of the special session, you think this will pass? How much impact do you think it will have?
At the end of the day, it's going to be kids already in private school benefiting from it. The money's going to go up. I do think there's going to be some problems with the hold harmless. We didn't get into that, but I do think that I don't think the math is right on it, and I think they're going to discover pretty quick.
Kind of that floor of funding that they're talking about?
Yeah, they're off on that, and I could explain it, but I'm not going to get it. Your viewers are run off the road bored with this one. But at the end of the day, they're off on their math with this, and I think that I think their intent. I think on this, I think the governor's actually right. I think he intends that not one school loses a penny. I believe he believes that. But I think his math is wrong. Whoever's doing it for him is wrong. And I think it will hurt public schools. If nothing else, he needs to factor in. I actually have like 3 more little quick points with him that you could actually add to it and make it better. Take out that crazy, you got to agree to it to get the money for teachers, and then go back and add that. It would be a little more palatable maybe. But I think public school teachers oppose this steadfast. And I think it's going to be, mashing of the teeth and I think there's going to be some lawsuits over it, and I think we're going to see the next 3 years will be coming in. But at the end of the day, you can't stop something when they got the votes.